We begin this hour on President Trump's birthday spectacular. Tonight, the White House will host a series of UFC fights on the South Lawn as part of the celebration of America's 250th anniversary. And yes, today just so happens to be Trump's 80th birthday. And all the hoopla and dollar signs surrounding the event are spurring controversy, with critics saying it reeks of corruption. As MS Now reports, Trump and some of his allies could personally benefit from the fight. Case in point, Trump purchased tens of thousands worth of stock in TKO Holding Group, UFC's parent company, weeks ahead of the fights. That's according to a May financial disclosure. However, the White House says Trump's investments are managed by a trust. The Trump Organization has also promoted a line of Freedom 250 themed silver and gold medallions priced from $250 to $12,000 tied to the event. And Trump's birthday bash is facing more than just criticism. Later today, the No Kings movement will hold a counter event to protest Trump's policies and what organizers call, quote, strongman politics. Joining us now, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, member of the Senate Judiciary and Senate Foreign Relations Committees. Senator Booker, thank you for coming to the weekend. Let's talk about this UFC fight. I'm going to put up a Reuters Ipsos poll that asked some of the American people, is it appropriate for Trump to hold a UFC match at the White House? 46% said no. And yet the president is still doing this, seemingly doesn't care. Just your reaction to this event being held in the South Lawn of the White House and all the smell of corruption around it.
Yeah, this is one of the more staggeringly outrageous things that the president has done, as Americans are really struggling right now. We're seeing inflation rates going up. We're seeing the cost of gas and the cost of groceries, the healthcare costs skyrocketing because of the things that he's done. And what is he doing? Is he doing anything to address those issues? No. He's actually building ballrooms, building arches, and having a big, lavish party sponsored by corporations on the White House lawn. This should offend every single American and once and for all make it very clear Donald Trump does not care about you or your family.
Senator, your colleague, Senator John Cornyn, gave an interview with the New York Times this week where he made some predictions about the next few years and the, quote, misery that Donald Trump is going to face during his last 2 years as president. He gave voice in starkly candid terms to a growing sentiment among Senate Republicans that Mr. Trump was hurting his own party with self-serving decisions and his insistence on slavish loyalty, ultimately setting himself up for a midterm disaster that would pave the way for the most miserable 2 years of his life. We have discussed what some have called the YOLO caucus extensively on this show and been skeptical of it, quite frankly. I'm wondering if you can give us your definitive take on whether or not you feel like your Republican colleagues are going to step into their constitutionally given role as a proper branch of government.
Well, look, cynicism is not a muscle that I really have, but dear God.
Try.
I'm really happy that people are. These Republicans who have lost elections, lost primaries, or heading out of the Senate are finding their voice. Everything that is going on right now, the Republican Party in Congress has enabled. They didn't call out his reckless tariffs that are driving farmers out of business all over our country. They didn't call out his smashing and dashing simple lines of separations of powers. They didn't call out this reckless war that he started without constitutional approval. They have been silent and enabling him as he's put unqualified, unserious people in some of the most important positions, and as he has openly grifted off of their office. I've heard quiet conversations about how outraged or how upset they are about things, but they're not speaking up. When history looks back at this administration with its massive corruption, with its bankrupt ideas, with its utterly hurting its own people with higher prices and unbelievable tax cuts for the wealthiest while the rest of us suffer, what they're going to see is not just an out-of-control president, but they're going to see a party and Republicans in Congress that enabled him to do all of that.
We have a lot that we want to talk to you about, but I want to go back to sort of, I guess, the UFC fight, but zoom out a little bit. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. I think the UFC fight that we're going to see puts on the table the question about masculinity and the kinds of ways in which the administration, many people in this country, want to see violence from men. They want to see men as tough and hard and hitting each other. And I'm curious, as we're in the middle of Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, how you are putting those two things together in your head.
Well, look, people like Trump and Hegseth and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, put forward a sort of counterfeit masculinity, a fragility, in fact. That's not really true strength. And what I worry about right now is that men in general and men of color in particular are seeing a real mental health crisis. They're being told to be strong, and that often means the implicit message is to be silent, is to carry loads, even though you're hurting on the inside, to try to give this air of toughness that is actually wrong. Sometimes the three strongest words you can say as a man is, "I need help." And to understand that exhibiting that truth, that we all are vulnerable, we're all carrying difficult loads, that truth is something that will inspire other people. Because right now, there are too many guys out there that are suffering in silence, and we're seeing it in the data. Black male suicide rates are skyrocketing over the last 5 years. They're up about 25%. We see a real challenge with people who need mental health care, but they can't find it. Only about 1 out of every 3 black men that are looking for mental health care can actually find it. We need to start talking about this as a community and understand the second leading cause of death for young black men is suicide. And we as a community have to step up and do more by telling the truth to each other, by speaking up, and by normalizing the reality is that no man is an island. We all are connected. We all need community. We all are loved, and we need to reach out for help when we need it.
Senator, thank you for providing your voice on this particular issue. I want you to put on your Senate Foreign Relations Committee hat and get your reaction to this headline out of Reuters on Trump saying a deal will be signed. Trump says deal to end war will be signed on Sunday. Iran questions timing. We will have to wait and see about the exact date of the signing of the memorandum of understanding, although it will not be tomorrow, state media quoted an Iranian official as saying. Do you know, is there going to be a signing? Do you even know what the terms of this, the real terms of this memorandum of understanding are?
Look, one of the great quotes from American history is a group called Public Enemy that said, "Don't believe the hype." This is a president that has, in many ways, really conducted the ultimate farce on the American people. This is not a deal to do anything but to undo some of the damage that he's done, which is the Strait of Hormuz was open before he started this ill-conceived war, and he's been struggling right now in a stalemate with a minor power. The greatest country in the world has been struggling just to get the Strait of Hormuz open. And we have been paying the price every single day. We've been paying the price. We've been paying the price here at home with rising prices. We've been paying the price with tens of billions of our taxpayer dollars. And what are we getting from this president's now most recent version of this farce? Is the Strait of Hormuz open when it was open before the war. Mm-hmm. We have paid the ultimate price with some of our soldiers dead, 14, hundreds injured that are going to come home with wounds and with challenges. This is an utter disaster. And this president, what he's advertising right now, is nothing more than getting something open that was open before. And what's the price that we're also going to be paying? We're going to be releasing billions of dollars to this enemy that now Iran is going to have billions of more dollars to rebuild their military and to fund their terrorist proxies. This is a disaster. This is a failed president, and this has been a failed war that he's declared.
Senator, there's a number of confirmations that are going to be coming your way and put a bunch of your colleagues on the spot in the coming weeks, including that of Todd Blanche, along with the newly appointed Jay Clayton as the head of the DNI instead of Bill Pulte. Will you be supporting Jay Clayton's nomination?
Again, I'm sorry to be just so blunt, but hell no. You got to be kidding me.
I asked because a bunch of your Democratic colleagues have said that they are going to support him.
Well, I'll give you a couple just real facts here. We know that in order to get these jobs, people have to pledge not a loyalty to the Constitution, not pledge to serve the American people and the rule of law. These are people who have shown over and over again that their loyalty is to Donald Trump. To Donald Trump, who's using the Justice Department to go after United States senators, to go after the head of the Fed, to persecute and prosecute people for Donald Trump's failed lies, like the big lie. Remember, he's going after Comey, and this is Blanche that has led that. These charges that are ridiculous, that every lawyer, every prosecutor in America knows are absolutely ridiculous. This is your taxpayer dollars. This is our precious law enforcement resources not being used to go after drug traffickers or sex abusers. They're being used to go after Donald Trump's fantasy agenda of persecuting people that have in any way criticized him or come after him for real crimes that he committed. This is an insult. Remember, Donald Trump's national security leaders from his first administration did something that has never before happened in American history. They came out and warned America, if you put this man back in the White House, he will be a national security threat and make our country vulnerable to attack. That's exactly what's happening right now. And we're seeing it by the unserious people that he's putting up for these jobs. And when it comes to national security, we have a bipartisan statute that says the person who's in that job shall have extensive national security experience. We're not seeing that in these last two nominees. We're seeing Trump loyalists, and it's dangerous to America.
Senator, so if there are Democrats that vote for Jay Clayton, who doesn't have that experience, is that a mistake? Should they? Do you think? Are you telling them not to do that?
Well, look, I've been increasingly mad over these months and even years with my own party. That we are not fighting in a way that meets this historic moment. And you're a senator, you vote your conscience. I will respect my senators and don't always agree. But the larger picture right now is what's at stake. We know this is a Justice Department that's coming after African Americans' ability to have fair maps and the ability to vote. We know this is a Justice Department that is doing things that are rigging our system against Americans that are looking for justice. They've eviscerated the Civil Rights Division. They have gone after people for white racism, they're calling it. This is a dangerous day, and there are larger issues afoot that are undermining a fair democracy and the rule of law and the concept of justice. So I am sorry. We should not be supporting people who are being put up for positions in this Justice Department that are not serious and are in fact dangerous to the well-being, the public safety, and the ideals of this nation.
Senator Cory Booker, thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Today marks the 1-year anniversary of the first No King's Day protests. It also is the 80th birthday of the man those protests are aimed at. And as the country enters its 250th year, the President of the United States is marking the occasion, this is true, with a cage fight on the South Lawn of the White House. Most Americans couldn't tell you what the letters UFC stand for. And that's okay, because this event was never meant for most Americans. It is a gift to Donald Trump from Donald Trump. Only 16% of Americans called the UFC event an appropriate use of the White House, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll. But it was never about decorum. It's about power. It's about spectacle. It's about reminding everyone who is at the center of the show. The Trump administration paraded the fighters through the chamber of the Lincoln Memorial, the octagon in the middle of the South Lawn on the grounds of the People's House is lined with corporate ads, Crypto.com, Bud Light, Polymarket. American servicemen and women were told they could attend only if they passed the defense secretary's fitness test. This is power as performance, muscle, obscene wealth, and a president who needs you to watch for him. Strip it away, and what's left is a man who has to mark his territory on public institutions just to be sure we know who's in charge. Secure leaders don't need a cage on the lawn. They don't need their names bolted into public buildings either. Take the Kennedy Center. Trump's hand-picked board added his name to it. A federal judge ordered his name be taken down, ruling that Congress named the Kennedy Center and only Congress can rename it. And on Saturday, the day before his birthday party, workers climbed the scaffolding and pried his name off of the marble. The UFC fight is billed as a gift to America. But underneath, it's just another Trump family transaction. Guess where it streams? On Paramount, a company controlled by a Trump ally whose controversial merger was approved by the Trump administration. Trump's trust bought stock in UFC's parent company back in March. His sons are selling coins stamped with Trump's face for as much as $12,000 apiece. That is Trump's vision of America. A spectacle with a price tag. Pay to play. Here's the real America. A year ago today, an estimated 5 million Americans filled the streets for the first No Kings protest. I was there reporting in LA, first watching from a balcony high above downtown Los Angeles at the top of LA City Hall. I'll never forget seeing this. Moments later, I was down in the streets as law enforcement and tactical gear began to close in on protesters. By October, 7 million. By this spring, organizers say it was 8 million in more than 3,000 different towns. I've been with many of you guys at all of these. Again today, they're gathering and they're singing. There's an event called Rise Up, Sing Out. It's a concert for the First Amendment, for the freedoms like this administration keeps trying to choke off: speech and press and assembly and the right to protest. 90 minutes on a New York stage, live streamed to hundreds of watch parties in churches and in bars and in living rooms, red states and blue states. The organizers laid out the choice. Authoritarians want fear, silence, and isolation. We choose joy. We choose community. We choose people power. The people power has a face and a name. This spring in Minneapolis, a city where federal agents had spent months terrorizing immigrant communities, 100,000 people marched. One of them was Miguel Hernandez. His parents came from Mexico. He owns 2 burrito shops called Lido's. And on that day, he volunteers as a marshal, helping to keep the march moving. When asked why he showed up, Hernandez put it this way.
I'd love for more folks to say, in the face of authoritarianism, yeah, you might risk something, but at the end of the day, you'll be helping someone. Step out of your comfort level and push back on something that will ultimately get worse if we do not.
Real America looks like a warehouse in South Boston, Virginia, where Annan flag makers have stitched the American flag by hand since 1847. Their flags flew at Lincoln's inauguration. They draped his casket. One went to the moon. On the factory floor, there's one rule: leave politics, money, and religion at the door. Marlisa Nunez, whose parents came from Mexico, says the flag means simply a better life. That is the flags that No Kings marchers now carry. An effort, they say, to reclaim it from those who would turn it into a weapon. Real America is Barbara Greene, 92 years old, drawing on muscle memory from the movements of the 1960s. She says, quote, "I wake up every morning with a feeling of dread, wondering what the president has done or said while I was sleeping. It's not normal. But if it is designed to make us shut up, it's not working." But not all of Real America is in the crowd today. Some are sitting this one out. For many Black Americans, and especially Black women who have carried movement after movement, that absence is a choice born of exhaustion. Miyoshi Smith, a Baltimore resident, put it this way: Black women in particular continue to carry this country on our backs while not being protected, supported, or even consistently shown up for in return. We show up to vote, we build movements, we create pathways forward, and then we're often left standing alone. That's not apathy. As University of Maryland professor Marcus Johnson put it, Black people are not stepping back, but it's being more intentional about engaging in politics in the places where you perceive your impact. And Real America is carrying a load. 2 in 3 consumers reported living paycheck to paycheck last year, according to research firm Himmons Intelligence. 71% say healthcare is unaffordable, according to a poll from United States of Care. Gas has climbed past $4.50 a gallon on average, while families trim grocery lists and put off doctor visits. A record 55% of Americans now say their finances are getting worse. 55%, the highest Gallup has measured since it began asking in 2001. That's worse than the Great Recession, worse than the pandemic, and 2/3 of Americans now say they are more afraid of running out of money than of dying. And the president, when asked whether the high prices factored into his decision-making about the war, this is what he said.
The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
Days later, what did he call that? A perfect statement. He said he'd make it again. Today, the president will sit ringside at his own party. The country he ostensibly leads will be somewhere else. Some of it trimming the grocery list, deciding whether a trip to the doctor can wait. Some of it will be singing, despite its worries, in the streets, in living rooms, in churches. That's the real America, all of it. It never asked for a king or his ballroom or his gladiator matches, and it was never going to be quiet. Joining me now, co-founder and co-executive director of the Indivisible Project, Leah Greenberg. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
You're calling this a concert for the First Amendment. It's just down the street here on 43rd Street. Why did you choose this framing for this year's protest?
Well, we're really proud as Indivisible and across the No Kings Coalition to partner with the Committee for the First Amendment, led by Jane Fonda and a really extraordinary team of artists, activists, singers, and actors across the entertainment sector. And they had this vision of putting on a concert that would actually really articulate the values that are under attack right now from this administration. And so for us, this moment was about trying something new, right? We've proven that we can put millions and millions of people in the streets with literally historic numbers time and again. We also want to take that energy and invest it in local community, invest it in community building, invested in enjoying and having fun with each other, invested in building the kinds of structures and infrastructure that is necessary for the long haul for our activism.
And I have to tell you, it has been incredible to be out there, just purely the feeling of being with people. I talked about it yesterday. Over the course of the last year, I think I've been to every one of them. And I wonder, for you, a year after the first No Kings protest, what do you think has changed other than the numbers continuing to grow?
Well, I think so much has changed about the national environment, in part because of these as narrative interventions. Early last year, what we were seeing was so much of American society was folding in, obeying in anticipation of Donald Trump. They were collapsing to a would-be dictator. They were kind of assuming that he was going to consolidate power and they needed to go along to get along. We saw this with the law firms, with media institutions, with corporations and billionaires, and with a lot of Democratic politicians as well, not to mention Republicans. And what we've seen over the last year, as millions and millions of people have come out and shown up in the streets, is that we've punctured that aura of inevitability, the sense that Donald Trump is inevitable, that he is going to consolidate power, that he's going to rule over us unchallenged. And we've demonstrated that there's a powerful counterforce to him everywhere in the country, from the reddest areas to the bluest areas.
What does it mean to you personally, this anniversary?
Well, I'm proud. I'm proud to be part of a movement of millions of people. I think that we've seen some of the darkest and most horrifying actions in a long time from our government over the last year and a half, but we've also seen an incredible movement of people from Minneapolis to small towns across the country collectively saying, we're going to stand up, we're going to push back, we're going to fight for our neighbors, we're going to fight for our democracy. And so it's watching something really very evil rise up and be met with something very good. And that's what today is about for us.
The sense that I get was a year ago today, there was a real despondency. And as Senator Padilla said to me earlier in our broadcast, people were reacting to things that they were seeing playing out almost in the moments before people took to the streets. A lot of these protests feel a lot more joyous despite the circumstances as far as I've felt them on the streets. Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely. And we've been trying to lean into that in this moment. And that's not because there is not enormous harm and enormous fear that is still rightfully out there, but it is because we recognize that one of the things that authoritarians try to do is they try to grind you down. They try to make you feel hopeless. They try to make you feel like you don't have any power. And one of the ways that we fight back against that is not by feeding their bait, feeding their incitements of outrage, but by leaning into community together.
In tonight's Primetime Focus, happy birthday, Mr. President. Donald Trump is turning 80 years old, making him only the second man to reach that age while in office. And if you ask the White House, well, the president never felt better.
What part of your body was the MRI looking at?
I have no idea. It was just an MRI. What part of the body? It wasn't the brain because I took a cognitive test and I aced it. I got a perfect mark, which you would be incapable of doing.
If the president's in such perfect health, why does he keep coming back in for checkups?
I think he likes the results. He does really well. He aces the test every single day.
Every single day he aces the test. This week, the Washington Post found something striking. 22 specialists have examined the president of the United States. We don't know what for, but it appears to be more than any president ever. The White House publicly disclosed 4 medical exams in under 2 years. 59% of Americans say Donald Trump lacks the mental sharpness to serve effectively, according to a recent Washington Post poll. And I am sure you have seen the many viral videos, or photos, I should say, of bruises on the president's hand, which the White House says is from shaking so many hands. I know talking about Trump's health is a fraught subject, especially after so many voters felt deceived by President Biden's apparent decline. But here's the thing. This isn't really about the president's health. It is about whether this White House would tell us the truth if something went wrong. And on that question, we know who we're dealing with. This is a president who told us that he would solve the Ukraine war on day one. He obviously didn't. The Ukraine war is now longer than World War I. This is a president who campaigned on justice for the Epstein victims, something they say he hasn't delivered on. In fact, one survivor who voted for him called his behavior a national embarrassment. This is a president who said January 6th was a, quote, day of love. It obviously wasn't. This is an administration that claims those videos of the president appearing to fall asleep, well, those are just blinks, apparently. So, guys, I don't know what you think about this, but it seems like a very bizarre thing that the White House has not been very candid about some of the doctor's visits that the Washington Post and seems to be reporting that he's getting a lot of frequent visits, or a lot of, I guess, significant number of visits, 22 doctors or specialists, and yet they don't offer any insights. And I think about how this would be different and the outrage that would be in right-wing media circles and the echo chamber if it was Joe Biden or if it was, President Obama having these visits.
Well, we did get a little bit of a taste of what that would be like.
And do you remember Trump's doctor, R.I.P., the long-haired doctor from, the Upper East Side that he went to historic? Trump has always been very shady about his health and not giving full disclosure. It really, to have 22 specialists, you have access to the best healthcare in the world. Okay, great. Go to your podiatrist. You can, hammer out so many different specialists that anyone could see if they want to do the Silicon Valley thing of living forever, too. Yeah. It isn't that exceptional. What makes this exceptional is the lack of transparency.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's actually a constitutional issue, kind of. There's a reason why there's been a precedent set of presidents being forthcoming about what's going on with their health and their information and their relationships with their various doctors, because it's like a national security issue. People need to know, voters deserve to know that information. Once you step into the role of being president, you are no longer just your average American who gets to keep what they're going through with their health private. Our safety now depends on you and your health. And so we do deserve to get those answers, and reporters need to keep pushing.
And there's no doubt that the job of the president is a grueling job, a physically demanding job. I remember even kind of noticing George W. Bush and just over the span of 8 years, how he aged going through that. Barack Obama as well. And even
his hair completely different
Absolutely,
color.
Absolutely. And so when you kind of think about how grueling this job is, a part of, to your point, is a lot of Americans want to know their safety safety is in the hands of somebody who is in good health and is capable and competent of making critical life and choice decisions, also because of the fact that it involves service members. And you want to make sure that the president's making those decisions with kind of the best mental acuity that he could possibly have.
Yeah, you definitely want one of those 22 doctors to be a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
For sure. Talking, and you can go and talk it out.
Right.
It's okay. Everyone should do it. I highly recommend
But also, the other part in that clip that we played was the way he attacked that reporter, right? And I think, you know, it speaks a lot to the way Donald Trump internalizes questions about his mental health or questions about his health. I mean, she was asking a simple question like, what was the MRI that you got? And he lashed out by flipping and saying, I don't know what it was about. It wasn't about the brain because my brain is great and I take cognitive tests all the time. And then you have Dr. Oz coming out and saying he aces it every day. And you're just kind of like, just be normal.
Yeah,
like, just
right?
be normal. Like, just say that you're getting
a brain scan.
That's what I'm saying. It's normal. If you have a headache and you get an MRI, which I'm sure like millions of people who've had, you know, any cause of concern go get an MRI for or whatever, it is nothing to be ashamed of, Mr. President. You can just tell the reporter what it is without attacking her and saying something that you would fail all of the time. And I take these tests and I ace them all the time.
That headline
just raises more.
Just be normal. I have a feeling that's going to be
exactly.
of use over the next few days.
Yeah.
We're going to have to leave it there
Just
for.
be normal, dude.
Just be normal, please.
Breaking news on the war in Iran. An impending ceasefire agreement between the U.S. and Iran threatened today by new strikes between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. President Trump says a deal to end the fighting and reopen the Strait of Hormuz is scheduled to be signed today. Iran denied an agreement would be signed so soon, but left open the possibility it could happen in the coming days. Here's what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said about the proposal today.
As we talk about aspects of the deal, some of which have come out publicly are totally wrong, it's performance-based. No money released to Iran until they perform. There's no trust and verify. There's no trust here, and we're going to verify everything. Nuclear material will be destroyed and removed. The nuclear program will be dismantled. The straits will be open. No tolling. This is not the JCPOA was a path to a bomb. What this deal will be a wall to a bomb.
Joining me now is Virginia Congressman James Walkinshaw. He serves on the House Oversight and Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. So on this proposed Iran deal, it reportedly establishes a 60-day ceasefire leading to more negotiations. But all of this is complicated and it could take months. And right now, it looks as though the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping could potentially be one of the only tangible items here, because it takes a lot of things to happen for the U.S. to get the nuclear, the enriched uranium out of the country, to actually have tangibles on what happens to Iran's nuclear weapons. So do you think that, I mean, what do you make of this deal? Do you think that this is a legitimate or good deal?
Well, first, I think we have to acknowledge that it's been weeks now that the Trump administration has been saying, we're on the verge of a deal. We're on the verge of a deal. So I'll believe it when I see it, if this particular deal comes together. But second, we're negotiating for things that we had before Trump launched this unauthorized war. We're negotiating to reopen the Strait of Hormuz that was wide open before the war started. We're negotiating to be able to negotiate around Iran's nuclear program. And that was happening and could have happened before the war started. So from a strategic perspective, we've made absolutely no progress after losing the lives of 13 brave service members and spending tens and tens of billions of dollars.
And Congressman, I mean, do you think that, I mean, what do you make of the fact that Iran is essentially saying that this deal, we're not sure when it's going to be signed, and hasn't necessarily said that those four pillars that the White House outlined, including Iran not having control of the Strait of Hormuz, including them handing over all of that enriched uranium, which there's questions about whether or not it can even be reached. What do you make of Iran's response to all of this?
Well, it's what we've seen for weeks and weeks now, with the Trump administration coming out and saying, we're on the verge of a deal, and here are some leaked parameters of that deal that make us look good. And then Iran or the mediators, Pakistanis and others saying, no, actually, we're not on the verge of a deal. So it's hard to know what's true in terms of how close they actually are to a deal. But I think one thing is clear at this point. No one seems to be suggesting there's a deal where Iran is going to agree now to give up their nuclear material, which is the reason, the stated reason, one of them, that Donald Trump started this reckless, unauthorized war. So he's not getting what he said he wanted to get when he started this war. There's no question about that. To have a negotiation to negotiate more about the nuclear material, could have done that without the war. In fact, we were doing that before the war started.
Congressman, I also want to ask you about FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act that expired on Friday over Democrats' objections to President Trump's selection of Bill Pulte as acting director of national intelligence. Trump has now nominated the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, Jay Clayton, as his permanent pick. Republicans are warning that this FISA lapse means the U.S. could, quote, go dark against terrorism, cyber threats, and other dangers. So do you think that they're exaggerating those national security threats? Do you expect FISA won't be reauthorized until a DNI is actually confirmed?
FISA and Section 702 absolutely is an important national security tool. And it's the Trump administration that put that tool at risk. First, by rejecting some of the common sense reforms that, by the way, a lot of Democrats and Republicans in Congress have been advocating for, like warrant requirements before the government can access the communications of American citizens. And then second, when President Trump appointed on an interim basis Bill Pulte, who is a clown, who has weaponized mortgage lending, has no national security experience. You know, Jay Clayton is not a great option in my view, but much, much better than Bill Pulte. So it's Trump who has put national security at risk by messing around with this program and then trying to appoint an absolute joke clown in Pulte in this critical national security role.
Congressman, I also just want to ask you about the Kennedy Center. This new fund was created where the president and the White House and the Kennedy Center are essentially saying that more donations could come for the renovations made to the Kennedy Center. And, you know, this all comes amid reports that more than half of the donors to Trump's White House ballroom project have won new or expanded federal contracts, totaling up to $50 billion. So could this new Trump Kennedy Fund, where more private donors can be giving money to the president's projects, just be another avenue for companies and private donors to seek influence to try to curry favor with the president?
Absolutely, it could. And precisely that kind of corruption or potential corruption is something that I hope a Democratic Congress will be able to investigate in January of 2027. Let me just say about the Kennedy Center, you know, Trump has driven it into the ground. He's driven it into the ground. Performers backed out, ticket sales dried up, the board and the staff in absolute turmoil once Trump and his allies took over. Best thing could happen for the Kennedy Center is for Donald Trump to move on to his other ego vanity projects and leave the Kennedy Center alone. It was doing much better before he got involved.
Congressman James Walkinshaw, thank you for your time. I appreciate you joining us on this Sunday.
Joining me now is New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Mr. Mayor, it's great to see you. How you doing?
You know, what an incredible night. What an incredible morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you again. Did you get any sleep?
You know, I went to sleep at 3:45 a.m. and like most New Yorkers woke up asking myself, did that really happen?
and it did happen. I can confirm. I saw it at a bar on the Lower East Side. You are such a diehard Knicks fan. It has been so fun to watch you go through this playoff run. I saw a video of you celebrating in the streets a few hours ago. I think you were in the West Village. Is that where you were?
Yes, that's where I was. And I think it was the same thing no matter what part of the city you were in. People have been waiting for this for 53 years. And there have been so many heartbreaks, so many near misses, so many years, every year where we've told ourselves it's the year. And for it to actually happen now, I mean, there's nothing more we can ask for as New Yorkers.
Talk to me about the energy in the city right now with the World Cup going on, with the Knicks winning the championship. Have you ever felt this way in New York City before, seen New York City so united before?
Really wrote about it quite beautifully, where it said that oftentimes this kind of unity comes in moments of tragedy, and to see it coming now in a moment of joy, it's something that I've never seen before across our city, where the nation's largest city has become what feels like the world's smallest town, where everyone is thinking and hoping and praying for the same thing. And now here we are, and we're just pinching ourselves and asking, is it real?
I feel like the parade announcement dropped in the seconds after the championship being clinched. What can you tell us about what we can expect for Thursday?
Well, I think first and foremost, as a fan, I'm always hesitant not to jinx anything, but as the mayor, we do have to prepare for all of the logistics. So thanks to the team and partners at MSG as well as at the NYPD, this work has been happening behind the scenes just in case we were to win Game 5. And we're going to have a parade on Thursday, and it's going to be a parade that has a ceremony at City Hall. We'll be presenting keys to the city to the Knicks team, and then it will be the first ticker tape parade in Knicks history, where New Yorkers will be able to celebrate a moment that feels like we've waited an entire lifetime for, because when it comes to people my age and a little bit older, we have.
I just got the chills with you saying that. And in fact, no reason you'd know this, but this show is going to be originating from my hometown of Los Angeles, but I happen to be here in New York with our team in Times Square to launch the show. There has not, I couldn't have picked a better time to be in the city for all of this. And it was the most unbelievable experience I think I've ever had, including in my years at NYU 20 years ago. I want to play you, Mr. Mayor, something that has gone viral since the Knicks made the finals. I am positive, 100% positive you've seen it, but I just want to get your reaction. Watch this.
Mayor's still Muslim. My bagel's still Jewish. Even the Pope's on our side.
He was right. He was right. Did you get to meet him? Do you know anything about him? Have you reached out to him?
I haven't met him, but he is a New Yorker whose words have really stayed with all of us. You know, thanks to him. There are a lot of people who've just been running up to me over the last few weeks, just shouting at me, "My mayor's Muslim." And I said, "It's true, I am."
And my bagel is Jewish, and so is this news anchor, and it's a beautiful thing, New York City here. Mayor, I want to.
It truly is. I think it speaks to just what this city is, and even this team. It's not just a cookie cutout of the same thing again and again. It's every single player having a role, bringing together all of the 5 boroughs for this moment. It's truly a joy.
I wish my Christian was Dior. We got to talk World Cup, Mayor. You were
me too,
you were in the
brother,
stand.
Me too.
Yeah, I know. I saw you in the stands with New Yorkers who won that 1,000 affordable ticket giveaway. What was it like for you to be out there with everybody? They seemed so pumped to see you.
It was amazing. You know, I think we were able to deliver 1,000 tickets at the cost of $50 each with free round trip travel, and to sit next to so many New Yorkers who had dreamed of this day. You know, I was sitting next to a woman who showed me that she had posted on Facebook 8 years ago that her dream was to go to the World Cup. And thanks to this raffle, she was able to do so. And I think that's just, it speaks to what we want sports to be. I mean, even we're talking about the Knicks. We don't want sports to be a luxury commodity. We want it to be something that every person can see themselves in and be a part of. And to sit next to those New Yorkers who have long been waiting for this moment, it was one of the best moments that I've ever had.
It was so cool to see, and it is such a celebratory atmosphere in the city right now. But just to make a turn, a lot of New Yorkers are worried about what Tom Homan said about sending all these ICE officers to New York City. You and I talked about this when I saw you during the transition when we walked from your office over to City Hall in between the Tweed Courthouse. Do you think New Yorkers should be afraid of a surge of ICE agents here? Have you talked to the administration at all about this surge, and what is New York City going to do about it if it happens?
You know, I think it's actually not too unrelated from the conversation we were just having. This is a moment of such excitement and joy as part of a reflection of the city as being a place where everyone is welcome, everyone is a part of it. There's a room for everyone to see themselves not only in the past or the present of the city, but also the future of the city. And these kinds of threats, as you've said, from Tom Homan and the federal administration, they're not new, and neither will our response be. We continue to be proud of being a sanctuary city. We continue to be ready to stand up for our immigrant neighbors, and we continue to be ready to use every single tool at our disposal. And I've said to the president directly that I believe that ICE raids are cruel, and they do nothing to serve in the interests of public safety. And I do believe it's a rogue agency that should be abolished, because we need an approach to immigration in this country that has more humanity at the heart of it. And right now in this city, humanity is what we are showing by and large across the 5 boroughs, and it's something that we're going to keep showing in our response to the federal government as well.
Do you believe this is a real threat, or is it just bluster? Have you gotten any indication they're serious about this?
You know, we've heard threats time and again. I'm sure we'll hear more of them. We treat every single one of these as real things to be responded to, but we will not be backing down from our laws or from our values.
On your midterm endorsements, these 3 that you have made, and you're going out actively campaigning for everybody, I would love for you to talk a little bit about this, because, you know, a Democratic strategist who worked with you during your 2025 run called these endorsements of these progressive candidates high risk, but also high reward. Do you think, I mean, it could expand the power of Democratic socialists in Washington. It could also backfire. How did you level that decision?
Well, I think at the heart of it was a recognition of the fact that the affordability agenda cannot be won alone. If we are serious about transforming the nation's most expensive city into one that's affordable for the people who build it each and every day, we're going to need partners at every level of government. And when I looked at these 3 candidates, Brad Lander, Claire Valdez, Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier, in each of them, I saw someone who would champion the working person that is often left out of these conversations entirely. And what I am seeing in the campaigns that they're building is the kind of conviction and the kind of clarity that is oftentimes missing in not just our politics, but even in our party. You look at Brad's campaign and how he's building one to make it clear that, no, we're not going to let a billionaire buy an election. When you look at Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier's campaign, a track record of having freed New Yorkers unjustly detained by ICE. And when you look at Claire Valdez, a moment where working people are being pushed out of our city, to have someone who rose up through the union movement, whose focal point and focus is on the working person, to have that as a champion in Congress, it's more than any New Yorker could ask for.
There's a similar thing playing out in my hometown of Los Angeles. We have a Democratic socialist, Nithya Raman, running against the Democratic mayor of L.A., Karen Bass. Are you going to endorse Nithya Raman?
I got to tell you, most of my focus is right here across the 5 boroughs. That's where I've kept it with my endorsements thus far. And beyond that, all I'm really thinking about is the ticker tape parade on Thursday.
I don't blame you, Mr. Mayor. It is an exciting time in New York. I'm honored to have you on the broadcast on our inaugural weekend. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. It's a pleasure to have you here. Great to see you.
Thank you, my friend. Great to see you as well.